Find me one law, just one law, that clearly states that a man cannot have more than one wife.
The Bible does not deceive us in letting us know that our heart is wicked. And because we spend a little time of finding out how wicked our heart is, we're deceived above all things. And when there's an opportunity to do wickedness, we do it.
Hey guys, before we continue, I found that 27% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed. Click that subscribe button to support truth, and click the like button to keep these videos populated within the YouTube algorithm. Thank you for supporting truth. Let's get back to it.
And so you get these people that will go out there and spend millions of dollars campaigning for a position. You know the reason why they spend those millions of dollars? Because if they get elected or selected, you elect, they select. Y'all listening to me? Now I'm just a dumb old guy that hold up turkeys that Elder Doug shoot, butcher deer, talk crazy. Come here, Sister Misty. I gotta show you some country talking crazy. Hallelujah. Misty. What can I get Misty to say?
All right. This was Pastor Dowell during the latter part of 2012. The woman standing next to him is Misty. At first, I thought it was Jamie's wife until I did a bit more research. For those of you following this ongoing scandal concerning Dirty Low Dowell, you should already know that it is alleged that Dowell also slept with Jamie's wife. So as of today, Dowell has 4 wives, one of them being Mama Nellie, seen here also in the latter part of 2012, looking at the cameraman who is Dowell with her mouth open. Okay, at the time, this was a married woman to Eric Gonzalez. So thus far that we're aware of, there's Mama Nellie, Heather, and this woman here, Misty, who was also married during 2012. But her husband was not on the land, according to another witness who once lived at Straitway, and his name is Dustin. Okay, we'll get to his testimony a little bit later. So during that 2012-2013 period, Dowell was dealing with 3 married women, Nellie, Misty, and Heather. Let's continue.
Say yesterday.
Thirsty.
Did y'all hear that? And now I'm getting abused up here. No? We'll try it one more time. Sister, say yesterday. Say it your way.
Thirsty.
She's a country girl.
See how she keeps looking at him with her mouth open, and she has on a wedding ring? When she walks back to her seat, there's no one sitting next to her. Rather than not her husband was in attendance, Dowell and this married woman are flirting right there in the church. The same way Nellie was opening her mouth up, looking at Dowell, Misty is doing the same thing. I'm a man. When a woman opens her mouth wide, smiling and giggling and making eye contact with a man, especially in a public space, best believe he hitting that. She giving him the draws. Okay? Look at the way she looking at him. I wouldn't be surprised if he penetrated right there in the sanctuary when no one else was around.
And so all you people make fun of me. I get people out there grieving me all the time talking about how I talk. That's what happens when you're disconnected. See, we understand each other fine. I'll just do what you said.
He gaslit the people talking about the dangers of disconnecting. I mean, if you watch more of this video, he called other people up to make sure she wasn't the only one to make it less obvious. Really, Dowell, he don't want the people to disconnect because he's consolidated a power structure over there at Straitway, particularly over the last 13 years. Some of my sources state that prior to 2011, there were only 50 people there at Straitway. But as the ministry started to grow, Dowell started reading books according to a guy named Dustin. He was learning how to cast spells on the people. Even the eye contact he makes with Misty is quick when the video isn't slowed down. Because when Dowell is in service, he's really intent on scanning the crowd and his surroundings, which he should do, but I only point this out because there's always a few people who are loyal to Dowell as false witnesses, and they fire back saying that men like myself slander him. Okay. Misty is more obvious with her flirting because she's not a military trained cult leader. What evidence do you need to prove that this man is an adulterer? Okay, even if he was caught in an act inside the church, you still have clowns like Michael Israel accuse you of slander. I mean, that man is so dumb. Man is so stupid.
Because we were raised different. All right, follow me? Watch it say Yahweh.
Yahweh.
See? Still, she could say that just right, couldn't she? That doesn't make me ignorant or her ignorant because we don't talk the way you folks talk. You folks been trained by the people who are presenting this stuff. But this is my Hebrew sister along with everybody else in here.
She's not a Hebrew. You just lust after the women and you made an effort to recruit married women to build your cult following because you were getting bored with your first wife, Mother Carol. You recruited the husbands of married women, telling them they're going to have all things common on the land. That's what you did. See how he got back to doing his father's business? Even with all the flirting he was doing with Misty, Dowell made sure to stay on code, doing the work of the devil from hell.
And we come in all different shapes, colors, and sizes. And we understand each other very, very well. Do you understand me? Do I sound crazy? You understand the words I pronounce too? Yep. Say yep.
Yep.
Yep. Yep. Y'all hearing that? That's just the way my sister talks. There ain't nothing wrong with that, is it? Hallelujah. Thank you, Sister Misty. Nothing wrong with that. All my sisters hate.
Right. So this woman, Misty, she's no longer at Straitway. Perhaps she was passed around to other men whom Dowell, maybe he charged them money to sleep with her before she hooked up with Dustin. Okay, this man Dustin, or often he goes by the nickname Dusty, was at Straitway in 2012, and he worked on the land with Jamie at the time. Now, other content creators played part of his testimony and did commentary on a portion of the testimony, but they didn't reveal the video footage of Misty, okay, because Misty is the woman that he speaks about. So let's hear the testimony. Let's hear what he has to say.
How he kind of maintains the land with stronghold. There's a lot of stuff you're really not supposed to talk about while you're there, mention or bring up. And yeah, that's not me. So I do remember a small talk with Jamie, this brother Steve, a couple of the brothers in this land, about a lot of different things that were kind of odd that happened there. How there's his own grave plot there right next to his house where if members of the community died, whether they were older or younger, this is where people were being buried. That was a little weird right off the bat. Meeting down at the dining hall, pretty much everybody acted like they knew me already, like they had been waiting for me to get there. So I stayed on the land for a little over a month, doing everything from yard work to just small building projects. There was a big quadplex being built at the time that all the brothers were working on, Jamie included. And you know, during like breakfast at the dining hall, which everybody had to be on time by 8 o'clock at the dining hall for breakfast, or you were getting an odd look. You might even get talked to if you're late. I did before. Dowell became very aggressive during breakfast, usually regularly. We'd be sitting there eating. All of a sudden, you'd hear the pastor say, "Bless you, saints." Everybody would say, "Bless you, pastor." And usually he would stand up, or he would lean back in his chair, usually stand up, and begin to grind on the brethren, on whoever was visiting there at the time. If your kids was causing problems and there was a trash being left around, he would address that pretty well. And other things going on in the land as well, kind of insinuating that there was more going on than really was. He liked to make people feel guilty, to an extent where one morning he was up speaking and was getting progressively more heated about what he was speaking about, and he slammed his hands, both hands, down on the table in front of this pregnant sister. And I mean, he was yelling. Everybody had already sat back from their food and, you know, was diligently listening to what this man had to say, kind of all feeling guilty. We was all sitting there looking like, okay, he's talking about us. That's how it felt like. And when he did that, a lot of the brothers were pretty taken back. I don't believe there was a few brothers that didn't even come back after that, because we were ready to stand up. But you got to understand, most of the men that frequent this place are very involved in this place. They all carry weapons. There ain't nobody standing up and making no problems there.
So thus far, Dusty made mention of the obvious that Dowell has armed security on the land at Straitway. We were already aware of this because during his church services, you could see the armed guards standing in the corner, okay, while he preaches. All right, but Dusty and several other brothers, as you heard him say, some of the brothers left, you know, after they saw Dowell getting into a lot of the brothers and agitating the people, oppressing the people, making a public shame of them. And he even slammed his hands on the table in front of a pregnant woman. Okay, and that got their blood boiling. All right, but a lot of the guys on the land, although they're not in uniform, they're carrying firearms and they're loyal to Dirty Low Dowell. Okay, so although the brothers on the land were upset, they were not going to make a move. So he has these armed security guards even when they're there eating breakfast at the dining hall. Okay, also, you heard Dusty say that people who died at Straitway were buried at Straitway. So when Dowell says that they live set apart, you might want to keep that in mind. Those of you who are just blindly following this demon, okay? Because there's no calling emergency services. The land is isolated away from the rest of society. Okay, let's continue.
When I stayed there, I stayed in the trailer. A few other brothers started to show up. After I got there pretty early before Passover in 2012. So I was in the trailer by myself for a while, chopping my own wood, heating up the wood stove to keep myself warm at nighttime because it got cold. And they provided me with a bucket that they told me that if I woke up in the middle of the night, I need to go number one or go number two. You could go in the bucket. In the morning, you're supposed to take the bucket outside and go dump it out somewhere. So, you know, no big deal. I understand you're all out here homesteading, and that's just one of the things you got to do, right? I'm being invited into Pastor's house one night before Blog Talk. I had dinner with him and his wife, pre-Blog Talk, and I got a pretty good look at his book collection, which I was super interested at the time. I myself am a big collector of books, and he had some pretty interesting stuff in there. One book that always stood out to me that I tried to find later on was called Gods of the Jews, or Jewish Gods. Pretty in-depth book about the demonology and spell casting that they were into. And Dowell always tried to put a lot of the books that I'd find that he has off of, like, you know, brothers give them to me over the years, things that he came across, offerings from brothers and stuff like that. But he had lots of books on spell casting, spiritual warfare, the occult, demonology. I mean, you name it. His collection was juicy.
So while Dowell getting all these false witnesses to say he healed me from this, he healed me from that, this demon reading books on how to cast spells on the people. Then what he does is come on camera during service and play the hypocrite, blowing trumpets, singing, "You made me whole, Yahweh, you made me whole, the body and the soul." Really talking about her body and her soul. Look at that devil. Talking about the body and the soul. Yeah, the body, all right. The woman's body, your wife's body. Playing the hypocrite, banging your wife, and come to sing and blow trumpets in your face. Ain't that the devil? Damn devil.
Some of these books I could never find later on myself because they did pique my interest. I was quite the spiritual warrior at the time, if you will. So during that course of time, basically the brethren and pastor had convinced me that me and my wife, at the time, girlfriend, we were never officially married. We did have a child together and a long history in life together. And these brethren and the pastor had basically convinced me that I was unequally yoked, that she was no good for me or my daughter, that they were convincing me basically to get away from her at all costs, which they did help to facilitate a few times by allowing me to come out to Georgia with Brother Rufus for a little while.
So, Pastor Rufus, if you could, when you see this video, is Dusty speaking about two different women? Because from the way that he's telling this story, one of the women he already had a history with prior to coming to Straitway, and the other woman he was introduced to when he arrived at Straitway by one of the women at Straitway. Because this woman that he met at the Feast of Tabernacles, I believe this woman, the married woman that he said, because Misty was married, I think he's speaking about Misty. Okay, now the first woman he said that he had a child with, and the second woman he also had a child with, or maybe I'm mishearing what he said. He really didn't make it clear. But nevertheless, the bottom line is that Dirty Low Dowell decides who gets married at Straitway. Okay, he'll do that either by a false prophecy, saying that he saw something in the spirit, or he'll just come to you and say you're not making enough money talking to the man. Meanwhile, either he wants to marry that woman for himself, or he wants to charge another one of the brothers in the ministry who might have a little bit more money. He'll charge them to marry that sister. Okay, really, that's what goes on at Straitway. Okay, because both of these women, if he's speaking about two different women, Dirty Low Dowell had influence over convincing them that they were unequally yoked with Dusty. Okay, the brothers on the land, they already knew that information beforehand, and Dusty's going to talk about it shortly. Okay, they already knew that Dirty Low Dowell was going to disapprove of the marriage, but let's continue.
And then I was mostly out on the land in Tennessee, hanging out with brothers, preparing for feast days. I would get there early to prepare for weeks before feast days. During this time, there was a situation that arose where he actually had told other brethren that he wanted me to go back, that he got an inkling in the spirit that he wanted me to go back to Florida. And at that time, I kind of found myself in some debt because I had been moving around and doing what I could for the ministry. So as I left, I told Dowell about the amount of money that it would take to cover my debt and get back on my feet when I got back to Florida. And he called me to his house as I was leaving, and he handed me $1,000, which I received. And I did make the comment to him that I would do my best to pay this money back, that I really appreciated it, which later will become an issue in this story.
Well, Dowell already knew that you didn't have enough money to move away from Straitway because it was so easy for him to pocket watch. That's why he gave you that false prophecy. He knew that you would have to come to him, and in the future, you would have to keep coming to him. But you was wise enough to move away from Straitway altogether. Okay, but Dowell thought by him giving you $1,000 and coupling that with him giving you a false prophecy, that was going to gain your trust. These are the manipulative games that this devil plays.
So I go back to Florida, and during this time, Brother Eric Gonzalez had started to become a pretty popular member of the ministry. And I was aware that he was a dog trainer, and a damn good one at that, a well-known guy. So I reached out to Brother Eric about acquiring me a German Shepherd for a protection dog for my family, which he was actually very quick in finding me the exact kind of dog that I wanted. So upon coming to Miami to get that dog, Eric basically told me he was interested in getting me into the dog training thing, He said I'd be a pretty good candidate for that. I was quick and witty. I understood the game that he was doing with his dogs. So over the next few months, it was arranged where I would move to Miami with Eric and help start kind of a congregation down there, if you will, a fellowship down there with some other brothers that were starting to come into the ministry. So I was down there for about 3 months. I learned the dog training business. I had my dog down there with me the whole time. And just previous to moving to Miami with Eric, I attended the Feast of Tabernacles at Straitway. And one night, they do a lot of heavy drinking down there during their feast days. Thousands of gallons of wine, man. I mean, hundreds of gallons of wine. They go through so much wine, so much beer. It's nonstop for days and days and days. So I came up touring in a band and living a pretty heavy party lifestyle before I came into this ministry. So the whole drinking and getting down like that, I wasn't too much up for it. I had maybe a couple beers, maybe tried the wine or something like that, but I was being very sober-minded. And over the course of Tabernacles, I was introduced to a sister down there. We hit it off fairly quickly. Was actually introduced to her by the pastor's daughter at the time, because she steered up a certain type of conversation, if you will, about my interests and sisters and what I'm looking for in an Israelite woman, that type of thing. So I said my little thing, and she ends up introducing me to the sister. So for the next few months, we talked daily. She spoke to me how she wasn't being treated fairly in the ministry. She was married to a guy outside the land who was not a part of the ministry. The faith wasn't affiliated with anything, nothing like that. And reports were being that she was, being abused, guns pulled on her, the works. I was even at pastor's house one day while she called to his house for his help because she had been hit with a gun by this man. So word was from her, mom wasn't too keen with her separating fully from the marriage because she had kids with this man. And Pastor Dowell wasn't letting her at the time divorce this man. But something was definitely going on there. Something was in the works.
So as I already established in this video, okay, I showed you the evidence. We have witnesses. That woman in the video, I believe, is Misty. Okay, the divorced woman that Dusty speaks about is Misty. Okay, she had a troubled history with her husband, and her mother didn't want her to divorce her husband. She could separate. Okay, the scriptures say that a woman is to separate, but she's to remain unmarried. Okay, but Dowell took this woman in as a concubine. Okay, because she's no longer at straitway. So this is how Dowell gets his concubines, which in this modern age, this matriarchal matrix, that's just another word for side piece or mistress or whatever you want to call it. A booty call or a one night stand, whatever the case may be. You saw the way that Dowell was looking at her, the way he was communicating with her. This is the only footage that I was able to find of Misty. Okay, and this was through thorough, in-depth research. All right. But Dowell took advantage of this woman. Okay, he knew that she was hurting from her previous situation with her husband. And then he brought her in saying, hey, look, I can take care of you and I can take care of your kids. But for some reason, she's no longer even at straitway. Okay, and I believe that Dowell knew that Dusty also slept with this woman. Okay, but let's continue.
So by the time I moved to Miami, I've been talking to this sister pretty regularly, day in and day out, making plans with this sister. And I started to come out to a few of the brethren about the correspondence with this sister and kind of what we were looking to do, what we were planning to do. Of course, knowing the way straitways ran, I'm trying to do things by the books, be cool with the brothers, make sure I'm doing everything okay so this all gets okayed, which never happened at all. As a matter of fact, when Pastor caught wind of it, kind of by his conference in Atlanta, Georgia, in November of 2012, I had brothers telling me, pastor's not going to agree with this. You don't make enough money. That sister needs somebody that can help take care of her kids, yada, yada, yada. The scheme and the plots had begun. But that really didn't faze us. I had actually been coming to Tennessee and meeting and staying with this sister, and we were planning marriage. At one point, I even had her pregnant, and the more that I would question her and listen to what she was saying to me, because she eventually did become divorced, and Dowell helped her do this. I have a suspicion in the same way bro Jamie secretly, and then was telling her that he could take her on as a wife, not for sexual reasons or anything, but to make sure she's covered and her kids are taken care of.
So Dusty is like the fifth or sixth, probably even a seventh witness against Dowell that this is what he does. Okay, talking about people who've given testimonies in regards to the women and how Dowell fulfills his lust by keeping the women to himself, or even taking your woman. Okay, I made a video breaking down how Brother Rockwright and also Brother Barack, they gave testimonies of how they were interested in women, or in Brother Barack's case, he already had a woman when he came to Straitway. All right. And Dowell was trying to separate them and trying to introduce the sisters of the church whom Dowell had already groomed and programmed. He used witchcraft on them and tried to pass that spell off to Brother Barack's woman at the time. Okay. So he did the same thing with Brother Dusty, and he was successful.
So, and this is way later on in the story though, but I broke my ties with this sister. I was starting to become very upset and bitter with the way these snakes conduct themselves and how personal they'll make it with you, thinking that we're all just here playing church. And I can assure you, Dowell, I was never there playing church. So, I remember sitting with Dowell one night and questioning him about his deliverance methods and where he learned all this stuff from, how he got so seasoned and experienced in doing this. And he admitted to me, right in front of his wife, Carol, two witnesses, that him and his wife used to travel around the U.S. and get involved in different deliverances going on, like different churches, different groups. He was seeking the knowledge on deliverance at the time. And he said the person who he learned the most from, when it all became a reality, when it all clicked for him, was I believe he said he was in Texas, a part of this big deliverance ceremony that was happening somewhere, and he met an African witch doctor who was the only one able in the room to be able to deal with the spirit that they were dealing with at the time. This is part of why I came into Straitway. At first, it was the talk of gold and silver, food storage, guns and ammo, the guy stuff. And I had been studying biblical truths for a while at the time too, so the deliverance part of it really did interest me a lot, which I was involved in quite a few mass deliverances, which were always all filmed. And during these mass deliverances, he would play this song, Nothing But the Blood of Jesus, over the intercoms real loud. Not only real loud, but like slowed down a little bit, like you put your fingers on a record, and it's nothing but the blood of Jesus, and you can hear all these other frequencies and just different dissonant notes coming in through what he was playing over the broadcast. And, as soon as these deliverances pop off, dozens of people just start hitting the floor, screaming, yelling, vomiting. Sometimes there'll be 10, 12 brothers on one brother trying to hold him down because he has a violent spirit in him. He's thrashing about, screaming, saying profanities, sometimes staring down the pastor himself. And the pastor didn't like that during deliverance. You start staring at him and wonder, he'll get the attention of some other brothers and make them watch you.
Brother Dusty, you funny, man. I mean, I know you serious, man. You went through a lot. I pray that the Lord restores you, man, from what this devil did to you. Okay, and so many other people at Straitway. I mean, Dow is a totalitarian. He's a dictator and a witch. Okay. You can't say that about other witches. I know there are a lot of pastors that are witches. Okay. But not a lot of them also have a security detail and carrying their guns around. I mean, the devil is just really using Dow to the fullest capacity that you could use a man. Okay. He's a serial adulterer. He's an extortionist. Okay. He's stealing the church's money. I mean, the guy's just doing all sorts of wickedness. Then he'll take you to court and try to sue you. The nerve of this devil. I suggest, Pastor Rufus, that, you bring all of this to the court as evidence. All these things. I'm sure you are already on your game. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Dirty Low Dowell, does he have concubines? Or how many concubines does he have in the church? Okay, because perhaps he marked Misty off as a concubine. Okay, and this is the problem with the church. This is the problem with polygyny. Okay, now you're going to have to let the church know that these women are your concubines. And how many women are actually going to stand up there publicly and admit that they're a concubine because you said they're a concubine, or you use witchcraft to convince them that they're a concubine. All right, let's talk about it in the comments and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.